copyright by.
Hi, hello there, and welcome to Smallfolk. Welcome to the Insight Check Twitch stream. I was going to say Insight Check Pod Presents, but then it got like, you can't say that 5 times fast, basically. I use he, him. This is Douglas, and we are going to be your DMs for a game of Smallfolk Dungeons and Dragons, a 5e homebrew that we have made here where tiny creatures go on grand adventures. Thank you so much for coming. It really means a lot to us. This is our second game of Smallfolk, but for anyone who was here last week, you will notice a whole new set of very incredible cast members around us because this is our first game of Table 2, which is basically we're running a couple games a month, 2 different games, which is just a fun way of getting more cool people into the world, and I don't know, just another fun way of playing. Yeah, we are very excited. I'm sorry, he's only sort of asleep, so I'm kind of bouncing here a little bit. But before we get into me talking a whole bunch, why don't we introduce everyone? So here at Insight Check Pod, we believe at an inclusive table. So what everyone's going to do is they are going to introduce themselves, their pronouns, their characters, and their characters' pronouns as well. So why don't we start it off with my good friend, Mr. Drew Barry.
Hi, my name is Andrew. I use he, him. My character is Dueler, whose pronouns are also he, him.
And what class is Dueler?
Dueler's a paladin. Sorry.
Didn't write that down. And what kind of race is my good friend?
Yeah. So we have 2 paladins in the stream. That's how cool this stream is. And I'm playing the second paladin. My name is Eric. I use he, him. My character also uses he, him. And I'm playing Ascanius. He is a beetle-born paladin. So I'm a little beetle man.
I love it. Ooze, you want to be up?
Yep. Hey everybody, I'm Ooze. I use he, him. I'm playing Akka, a proud scale sorcerer, and he also uses he, him.
Haley, would you like to go?
I will go. Hi, I'm Haley. I use she, her, and I am excited to introduce to you Nutella, who is my cleric of the light. She's a mouse folk, and I can't wait for you to get to know her. She also uses she, her.
Incredible. And last but not least, our good friend Alvin.
I'm Alvin. I use he, him. I'm playing Aeonix, a riverfolk gunslinger, who also uses he, him.
Awesome. And for everyone who doesn't know, Alvin, what a riverfolk is, what kind of animal is that good friend of ours?
A very cute otter. Very cute otter.
Amazing. And so, our good watchers and listeners, oh my goodness, Douglas, what's going on? You're very vocal right now. As you will notice, I am rocking a baby, a live one, obviously.
Real baby.
Fresh. And he is, sometimes I'm going to have to bounce. There might be a time where I have to do a quick run because he either poops himself or needs a feed. So in that case, we'll take a quick break, won't we, buddy? And then, and even if he doesn't, we'll take a quick break around midway. And we will just be 5-10 minutes, and then we'll be right back. So, oh man, gotta just check my notes for a second. So, quick thing for those of you who are here for the first time. Here are our Smallfolk games, our event-based streams. So instead of the streams that happen once or twice, like once a week or every couple weeks, ours happen about once a month. We have 2 tables that play around once a month. We are trying to get our games not only on Twitch video on demand, but also on YouTube and also on podcasts. So if you're trying to find a way that you can watch us, that is as easy as possible, we're trying to make that as easy as possible. Also, we're trying to make it so that, our activities and our games are just quick little adventures so that you can jump in whenever and not have a ton of backlog to catch up in. And basically, I've just been waiting a really long time to play with all of these fine people. There's a few things that I want to do. I want to thank our good friend Jay. He was at the foundation of creating Smallfolk, so without him, this wouldn't exist. I want to thank D&D Raps and Ember's Tide for making the music that you heard on the way in. I want to thank our producer Jerika. Without her, you would not see our faces, and so that's kind of important to us. I want to thank the players for being here. I want to also have a special mention to our good friend Sam Hotep, who is spending a very important night with a very important little girl with him. So we love you, buddy. Can't wait to get you at the table whenever that's possible. And finally, last but not least, I want to thank you, the listener and watcher, for being here. It honestly means the world to us. And with that, let's begin.
Woo!
Yes.
Yay!
Woohoo!
Okay.
Adult pretend time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So our players have been invited. So in our previous game, in table 1, we were in the wintertime, but in this game, we dialed back the seasons to that time in the valley where fall is ending and the first frosts of winter start to show themselves. And at that time, in this particular place, there is a festival called the Gloaming, which is the small folk equivalent of a Thanksgiving, where people get together in either their families or friends or large parties and celebrate the dying of the warmth and light before the cold of the winter sets in. And as is tradition, it always happens on the first full moon after the first frost, basically. Now, one of the most famous small folk parties happens at an inn called the Trailside Inn. It is a large log that has fallen generations ago and is off of the main path that leads through the valley. This is a party that is well renowned and an inn that is very well renowned for the mice that house it, the food that they store there, and just the revelry that we can find at such a place. All of our party members have either found or received an invitation to one of the most sought after trailside events, which is their Gloaming celebration. Oh, buddy, what's going on? And so the first thing that I think I'm going to ask everyone to do is to tell our viewers if they were invited or how they found the invitation. And also, in the invitation, Fern Wisptail, one of the proprietors, mentioned that it was customary that their guests bring a small dish. And so I want to see if and if what our good party is bringing. So why don't we do that in the exact same order that we introduced ourselves in? So, Dueler, how did you come across an invitation to the Trailside?
I was walking along one day and came across a pair of kind of unsavory mouse folk who tried to take, my little gold-covered acorns. Is that our gold-covered acorns? Is that our currency?
Yeah, the caps. They're
The
gold
caps. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And in the process of skillfully disarming them, I ended up in a tree in a nest of a bird and found stuck inside the nest the invitation. And I am bringing with me a small bag of acorns that I found as I walked along the way to the inn.
Amazing. I love it. Iscanius, how did such a proud beetle find himself with an invitation to a warm party?
First of all, he doesn't realize exactly what kind of party he's gotten invited to. He found his letter on the body of a mouse. He was patrolling the northern reaches of the valley. He was solo patrol. Came across this deceased mouse, found the letter, and as far as he's concerned, he's just trying to alert someone to the fate of this mouse. So he thought, well, I mean, I don't know who this is, but clearly someone's expecting him at this party, so I owe it to this mouse to let them know that something's happened. So he neither understands how big a party this is going to be or had any intention of really attending said party. So he's going to be really surprised when he gets there and finds himself in a game of D&D that he didn't expect.
I love it. And Ooze, how about Akka? Now, for our listeners, if you're interested about what is the story behind these races and what other races might be available in this homebrew community, there should be, if you hit !Smallfolk, there's a command that will lead you right to the source document that Jay and I created,
Check it out.
where you
Good
can get
stuff.
a little bit of where you can get a little bit more insight as to why these people are the way that they are. The one that you will not see is the Rivertail, who our good friend Alvin is playing, because that is a creation of our friend Cal. But we can also link that or source that at some point in time. But because the reason that I thought about that is our good friend Akka has traveled far from the tops of the rock mountains or the high walls that surround the valley. And why has such a creature come down on a cold evening?
Yeah, that's one thing too. Akka's dressed real warm because he's not warm-blooded like most of these people in the valley are. So he is like bundled up. Akka was given the invitation as kind of a liege or maybe a ambassador type. Um, he was given it because the people on the cliffs, their job is pretty much to guard over the valley nonstop. So they can't send out the higher up folks because they're needed on the cliffs. So Akka was sent in the stead of either the shaman or one of the higher up priests on the wall.
Amazing. I love it. That's very, very cool. Nutella, how did she get her invitation?
Nutella received her invitation the same way that she's gotten it the past few years. She loves this party and looks forward to it every year. The only thing that she enjoys more is the coming of spring. But she likes to celebrate the light. She is a light cleric, so her whole deal is the seasons. And so she received her invitation delivered to her by messenger and had been anxiously awaiting it, hoping that she would still be invited. And so she has been looking forward to this for a while and has had a lot of time to think about the food that she will bring, because there's nothing besides maybe the earth and her and the sun. There's nothing more important than food. And so she has prepared a few different things. She has a platter of a variety of different bugs and other sort of like caterpillars and some flies and things that she's collected and maybe aged a little bit, and also like different roasted nuts that she's been collecting for the last few weeks on her travels. And so she's got them in a little basket to bring with her.
Amazing. And how about our good Riverfolk gunslinger? How did such an adventurer find an invitation to this party?
He had gone to this party when he was much younger as a child with his parents.
Oh no.
Because he sat with his parents' station and his family's station. But since they are no longer around and he hasn't gone in several years, it is now falling on him to attend for his family's name.
Incredible. My friends.
And he's bringing a little crayfish dish.
Oh, I like it. Ooh. That is very, very cool. So, our good stream, please don't mind the rocking that I am doing. I appreciate that. I hope my sound options are not too bad here. But so, it is tradition with the Gloaming. Now, some of you might have shown up early, some of you because of the long travel from the northern part of the valley, or just the roads that you were taking down the long path that leads off the high cliffs. When you get there is around sunset, and Nutella, you know that that's right around the time that you should get there, because it is at that time that the fullness of the moon is able to start being it glows through, and is you can see it through the light cloud cover of the evening. Quickly off of the main path, there's a sign that leads through some tall grass, and after only a minute of walking, it opens up to a large, long inn of a fallen tree, tall and proud. It has many circular yellow windows, 2 levels high, glowing. It's got a red door with a small sign saying Trailside across it. And what you notice, Nutella, because it's different, but what everyone would notice as they would see it, is hanging behind the inn is balloons, very tall, almost looking like fabric balloons hanging well above, and they glow as well. There's 4 of them. 2 of them are much closer, and 2 of them are farther back, each one glowing with a bit of a different color, moving slightly in the wind, one of them seeming to bump around under its own volition. And with them, you can smell warm soup coming out of a giant pumpkin from behind the inn itself. The red door is open. Warm light and music pour out of it. And as you enter, you come to a very open room. It is. Oh, sorry. I'm reading. Haley, you said you were going to bring roasted hazelnuts.
Well, yeah, I was realizing the missed opportunity to have. It was pointed out to me that I missed the opportunity to bring a chocolate hazelnut spread.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
And I had meant to say I was bringing roasted hazelnuts with me, but I got very distracted.
Oh man! All right, we'll retcon it. That's just too good.
I have to bring Nutella with me.
Of course, obviously. So, the main room, Haley and Alvin. I'm sorry. Can you just remind me of your character's name because I'm blanking right now in nervousness?
Aeonix.
Aeonix, thank you. Aeonix, it's been a while, so you don't remember it, but as soon as you walk in, it all rings a bell. The main floor of the trail side is tall and open. It runs the whole of the log, and it has the center part the tables have been cleared over to the side. But there are many different tables. There are small square tables. There's a large, long circular one that's actually made from a part of the tree itself. There are longer tables. You can see many chairs. And there are many guests of different mice, a few bats, and they're just all milling about, it seems. You see a mouse tending bar at the back left. Haley, you recognize him as Ashy, one of the owners and proprietors. Every mouse who works here is a part of the same Wisptail family, but you know that he and his partner Fern are the ones who are the owners of the inn proper. And you see him just tending bar. There's guests lined up and down it, and he's slinging drinks, moving frantically the whole time. My friends, I'm sorry. I think we're going to have to take a very quick break. My good man Douglas is either thirsty for blood or for a drink. And I'm hoping it's a drink.
It's option number 1, probably.
back. We're back in. We're back online. We're back online, and I don't have a baby, but that's okay. It still exists. Douglas, the baby exists.
Dimension door's a thing. It'll be back.
Yeah, it'll be back. Douglas will be back. I'm gonna get a text in like 5 or so minutes that he's done eating, but I'm just hoping that our good party will be able to do a quick role play while that's happening. So
we'll DM ourselves. I'll declare that we've won.
Look at
Way
me.
off
Look at
script.
me.
Yeah.
I'm the DM now. But before we cut off, what we did see is that our party was. We'll figure out how everyone kind of came in on their own, but everyone has entered the main space, and it is at first very calm and quiet, but then there's a flurry of activity near the bar. Haley, you would know this as well as please tell me if my voice is messing up because I'm getting a weird thing by Discord. But everyone who's been here before would know this. But all of a sudden, there is a pop-up of a floor door kind of tucked into the back left, and what seems like a flood of mice of different ages, colors, and in different levels of clothing, some in full garb, some in just a shirt, no pants, Disney style, some of them in aprons covered head to toe in flour, are just rushing in and out. They are carrying dishes, breads and cheeses, piles of cooked cut veggies, kinds of bugs in different arrays, and nuts piled high. And you see them just in droves moving into the bar and then moving out a side of swinging back doors. This is happening in a flurry of excitement and activity. And I
Is
just
it
got
like a
the
little?
notification.
Is it like a little conveyor belt system where they're in one side and not the other?
You see them. It's like they have a system. It's like moving water, that the door is wide enough that on one side they're all coming in, and then you see them kind of looping out and around. And there's like a table. There's a big central table that they're actually kind of using like a spoke. That one part kind of goes around it, and then the ones returning are going around this big long table.
Okay.
You see Fern, that you can tell. Well, Haley, you know her, and Aonix, you know her as well. She is wearing a simple green dress. Her apron tucked half over, flour on her shoulders a little bit, and amongst her kind of blondie wheat colored fur. And she is like it's like an orchestra that she is just dictating piece to piece to piece. And in all of this flurry of excitement, you all find yourselves right at the entrance. So I'm going to give yourselves a moment. If party members want to talk about what they see, how they feel about it, what they're going to do, I'm going to go run and get my little friend. 1 second.
All right, so
We're back, and I have Douglas again. Thank you for the quick break here. So why don't we do this? Why don't we dial it back a little bit? We've described what people will see when they enter. Tell me how our characters are coming in. The night is cooling, the sun is setting behind you, and why don't we start the same way that we've been going so far? So, Dueler, if you
Cool.
could start us off.
So Dueler is walking along the path from the directions to get to the Trailside Inn, and ahead of him, he sees a large black carapace with a cloak, a prominent horn on the front, and he recognizes this Beetleborn as somebody that he's actually fought in the army with. And he calls out, Iscanius! Oh, chap, is that you?
And Scanius is not expected to see anyone he knows here. I mean, this is an errand. Like, he's here, he's going to deliver very sad news. I guess it's proper. And then he's going to go. Because, I mean, that's what he's here to do. So he turns around and he goes, Dueler, hi.
Ah, clever as always. Now, Iscanius, have you been to this Gloaming?
No.
Well, then we're peas in a pod. And he reaches and wraps around one of Iscanius' smaller legs and starts like half pulling him, half marching towards the trailside.
I see you're as fit as ever.
Well, 12 jumps a day.
So you were invited here.
Well, yes, sort of.
Okay. So you'll know who I should get in contact with. Then I have some news I need to deliver. This is a business venture. I'm the bearer of some very bad news, and then I really should get back to the misery up north. They need me. You know how it is. Army.
Well, it's just one evening. Hardly. I'm sure whatever's going on up north will still be there come morning.
Right. But you'll know who I should talk to, obviously. Since you were invited.
Well, and Dueler reaches into a pouch and he pulls out the extremely crumpled, like torn almost to the point that you can only see the message now piece of paper, and
exactly
lifts it up.
Kept as Ascanius would expect him to have kept something like.
And he lifts it up and he goes, well, I think it would be Fern, probably. Whispertail? Whispertail? He kind of stumbles as he's trying to, it's like, he can't quite read it.
Right. So this is your first time here?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, on then. And
All right. Let's go with Akka. You said that off camera. You said that you would probably be one of the later ones coming in because you've come from so far. So let's change order a little bit. And Nutella, tell us about your entrance and your expectations.
Yeah, so you actually mentioned that the balloons were different from the past, and so I think that would be the first thing that she would notice.
For sure. There's never been, you've been here every year. The pumpkin hanging out in the back, that's a tradition. They always they always roll the biggest pumpkin that they can find.
Of course.
The whole interior.
It wouldn't be the Gloaming without the pumpkin.
That's what they say around here. You know, it wouldn't be the Gloaming without the pumpkin. But these balloons are something new. They, you know, there's always small bits. You know of the games that are going to be in the back, the fair that they basically set up for their patrons. But this is something else. This is something that you haven't ever seen before.
So I'll make a note of the balloons and think maybe they're part of some new game that Fern's come up with or Ashley's come up with for this year. But what she will do, so she'll try to get there pretty early but she doesn't want to go inside before the sun sets either. So she'll have like kind of moved off to the side so that she can do a little like say a last not like goodbye but good night to the sun for the
cool.
season. So she's got a little like pouch of some herbs and stuff, and she'll just like take a little moment to sit by the side of the trail side and do that. And then as soon as the sun kind of like goes down behind the trees, she like bustles right in with her food and like goes right up to Fern and is just saying how excited she is to be there and where should she put the food and is there anything that she can do to help get the gloaming started.
Perfect. So let's say
Nutella's
that
cute.
let's say that you let's say that as you come in, you kind of bustle past a very excited, well-armored mouse and what seems like a somewhat reluctant beetle who you don't recognize. Um, and like parting water, the mice that have begun their flurry just kind of move around you. And while she is still holding court, Fern Fern looks around. You catch her eye, and she's still pointing at things, and she's still telling people what to do. But she says, "Oh, Nutella, oh, it's so good to see you. Come here and give me a hug." And she just kind of opens up her mousy arms.
She runs
and
right in for the mousy
just-
hug. There's some whiskers, maybe like
Oh,
a
yeah.
little like mwah, mwah, mwah.
She pulls you in. She reciprocates. Oh, thank you. It's you're always one of the first ones in after the set, and it always just warms me heart to see you. How are your ma? How are your pa doing?
Oh, they're doing really well. They, it's just a little bit far for them to travel all the way
I
out here, but they also they send their wishes for the warmest winter as always. And some of these, and she kind of like moves her basket around, some of these are from them as well.
Oh, what your family can do with the hazelnuts is something just absolutely unparalleled. We always love having it on the spread of the toast, and so we are just what? And she points to one of them. She's like, "Grab this from our good girl." And then there's like a mouse. Before you even are finished handing it, there's like two different mice who are taking the jar. And yeah, not a sponsor.
No. And she's like, be really careful
not a sponsor.
with that.
Not a sponsor yet.
Not a sponsor yet. Nutella, hit me up. I will eat Nutella every day.
Same.
And it's fine. Not my mouse, just the spread. But no, she hands the basket off. But as the mouse is leaving, she's like, and remember, it has to be just a little bit warm, but not too warm, or else it all runs off. Like, be really careful. Don't mess it up. And then she gives them the food.
And you know what? As you say that, they look to you, they look to Fern, and Fern nods, and then they're like, oh, and then they just go, and they go. You see them go, and it drops down into what is the lower part of the inn, which is entirely the kitchen. Like the whole lower part is stores and kitchen. And she says, "Oh, well, we're going to just do a quick greeting once everyone's here. But you've heard it a billion times. It's always a pleasure to have you in the room when we officially start. But if you'd like to go out and see the games, you're more than welcome to. Our home is your home, especially at the Gloaming."
Well, I couldn't miss the official start of the Gloaming. It wouldn't be a Gloaming without your kickoff. But maybe I'll just give a little peek out the back, but I'll be back in for the kickoff.
And she gives you like one more little like mouse nuzzle nose, and she whispers, "It's just so good to see you." And then she's back. Then something gets her eye, and she's like, "Oh no, that's not." And then she's like following a mouse, and like sends the person back so something be spiced properly. Aeonix, how do you enter?
Well, trying to show up fashionably late as suits someone at the station, but failing and being properly punctual as he always was. Shows up right after Nutella sprints through the door, also passing by Dweller and Iscanius with his little sack of goodies.
Amazing. And so what you notice, like this, it's exactly like you remember it as kids, right? You don't recognize any of the mice because it's been a few seasons. I mean, everyone was probably still there, but like kids, sometimes kids just don't notice, right? But like it looks the same, it feels the same. And what's different this time is that, like, you know, your parents weren't there, but like the bar is busy, but there are spaces there too. And there's like this mouse who seems sort of familiar, and he's slinging drinks. There's like hot, there's like a couple hot pots going on in the background. You see different barrels of things being poured from, and the whole place is bustling, right? So you know that there's stuff out in the back, but you also know that there's an official start that you have to wait for. So what do you want to do?
He's gonna go. He's gonna he's gonna attempt to hand his sack off to the flow of mice as he's making his way to one of the empty boss seats.
Perfect. So yeah, you basically open up your you take your sack and you find a straggler kind of on the outside of the flow, and they notice heading back into the kitchen, and just quickly, as if they were looking for it the whole time, they just grab and it disappears into this machine that these mice have set up, of like bringing, you can see like old dishes coming out, new dishes coming in. It just seems to be an ever non-stopping flow of food erupting from the bottom of this place. And Akka, how do you enter?
I think Akka would come down the trail and he would look up, because this is all really strange to him. He's not been down off the cliffs before.
For
So
sure.
he would come down, he would come through the tall grass, and he's like really, he's cautious, he's looking where he's going, he's making sure there's nothing out here, and he stops outside the front, and he looks up and he sees the balloons, and he's like, okay, this different. And he gets the door and he notices there's nobody watching guard, and he's just confused as to why that there's all these people here and there's no guards. So he kind of looks around and he looks over and he sees the two paladins, and just looks over and goes, "Are you two are you on the watch for the door?"
And at that sound, Dueler kind of goes trotting along, pulling Ascanius, and then kind of stops and turns. And he says, "Well, old chap, I suppose it's right there." And he gestures towards the door to the trail side.
Ascanius would say, I'm sorry, do we work here?
Yes, there's no I don't see nobody outside doing security. I figured that maybe you were.
Oh, right.
You
Because
you
of
you
this,
Beetleborn,
right.
yeah.
No.
Not one bit.
All right then.
Outside?
And he'll kind of give a puzzled look, like he still does not comprehend how there's no security.
Dueler, at this point, looking at Aka's confusion, Dueler would say, "First time," as if that he is quite experienced in this, even though it's not at all the case.
Yeah.
Yes, it's my first time actually coming off the high cliffs. Who is here? I'm looking for and he pulls out the invitation and he goes, I'm looking for a Wisptail. Is that someone we're familiar with?
At that point, every single mouse that is moving puts up their hand and waves, puts their hand down, and just keeps going back to work. It's just like,
Well, that's certainly confusing.
That's my
And
story.
he'll if you gentlemen are also going inside, we'll find somebody to speak about the security situation first, and then we can do whatever this happens to be.
you know what? Actually, Akka, can you make a nature, either a perception or a nature check?
It's the first roll of the game, Akka.
Oh
Okay,
It's
boy.
not
go.
writing
Do the
on this.
pressure is
Boy.
on.
This would determine how the stream goes. So roll well.
That
No pressure, though.
is a 13 plus 4 for perception, so 17.
Yeah,
Decent.
okay, for sure. So
Above
these
average.
balloons, nice. That's a good one. That's exactly what you wanted. These balloons are unlike anything that you've seen on top of the high wall. They are definitely floating fabric attached to some large twine that is hanging. The two that are closest are hanging on the far ends of the inn itself, and there are two farther back, like much farther down, some kind of backfield. Haley, you would have also noticed the color of the balloons. Um, Everyone would have noticed it, but it would have seemed odd for you because you were paying attention to these kinds of things. Each one is a separate, slightly different color. They all glow, so there's some kind of light source within them. But the one on the left is kind of a dully brown. There's another one. The other closest one is kind of like a whitey blue sort of a glow to it. And it's harder to tell in the ones in the far back, but Aka, because you rolled a 17, one of them emits kind of like a light orange, and then the other one is a gray, kind of a dull, yet like a gray that kind of flashes white every so often. So Haley, Nutella would have noticed this as well. Aka, with your 17, you also hear there's something like in one of them that's close, there's something bumping into each other within the balloon, right? Like they're moving, they seem to be moving along the wind,
It's
but
little
one of them
fireflies.
yeah seems to have like a couple things that are just like bumping, and it moves the course of them a little bit differently, and then it goes back into the wind. So that's what your keen lizard senses would have seen.
That's
What
so
do your
cool.
lizard eyes see?
It's
Mhm.
little fireflies.
Fireflies. Would these colors have meant anything to Nutella, like relative to the holiday?
You know what? Relative to the holiday, I mean, it's all warmth and light, but the color scheme of this is really none of them match the color scheme of the gloaming.
Okay.
The gloaming is like yellows and oranges. It's very seasonal, right? Just to match the fall, right? And these colors, I mean, one of them is a dull orange in the background, and the one that's closer, that's kind of like the brown, seems kind of on point, but the blue's a little off, right? Like you don't know if it's just like the color of the fabric or what, but like maybe they just grabbed a bunch of different sheets and they just used whatever they could, right? But yeah, no, the color scheme isn't indicative of the season itself. Now, when now that you're all in, what happens is that our the mice are still running about, but then Ashy from the bar kind of takes a big mug and like jams it on the bar a couple times, goes boom, 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 and he says, "Oi, oi, let the missus talk." And everyone, all the mice, either scurry out into the back or scurry down back into the hole. And so all of a sudden, what was a very busy room is calmer than it's been for a good bit of time. And Vern gets up on the largest round table and stands up and kind of brushes some of the dust or flour off of her body. And she says, "Well, there's always it's always my job to say the first starting of the word. So, and she's looking around the room, kind of. She nods to you, Anix. She warmingly nods to you, Nutella. She says, "There's a lot of people here that some we haven't seen in a while. Some it's our pleasure to see every year." And then she looks to the other three of you, and some new guests. But here at the Gloaming, it's always well, when it's cold out, you want to warm everyone in and welcome them. And so tonight, our home is your home. So it is my great honor and privilege to welcome you all to the Gloaming. Please help yourselves to anything at the bar. Ashy can make darn near anything. Isn't that right, love? And he just kind of says, "Oh, well, anything that we have stock in, love, and then just goes back to the drinks, and then she says, and as anyone who knows who would have been here before, please, we eat outside. We enjoy one last night before it gets too cold. So please join us in the back for some games and revelry, some food. There are names at most tables, but there are usually a spot or two that is open around in case someone finds their way in from the cold. So thank you. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask the closest mouse. We should all know what we're doing at this point in time. And one mouse, who obviously popped his head out too early from the hole, goes, and then like pops himself back down as she kind of looks at him, and then says, there are some things that are a bit different this year, but well, we all know the old Croaky and the surprises that he brings. And some of the visitors are like, grown. And Haley, you would know. Nutella would know exactly what that means as well. So if you want, you can ask some questions about that later. And she says, now, if you'll excuse me, I must be off. I've got a couple more things that I need to tend to, but please help yourself to a drink to the bar. There's a few snacks along the edges here, but most of our good revelries are outside. So thank you again, and welcome to the trail side. I'll see you later. And she just kind of jumps down and leans over the bar, and as she kind of parts people away, gives his partner a kiss, and then she goes back down, and you can hear, as soon as the door opens, anyone who has good enough ears hears her barking orders at 100 different mice who are downstairs.
Nutella will start a clap, like as when her speech is over. She's like, "Yay, the gloaming!"
Dueler will take off his helmet that has a big red plume on it and just like give it a little wave and say, "Yeah!"
See, Ascanius is pleased to hear their names on the tables because he figures, okay, I just have to wait and figure out which of the seats doesn't get taken, and then I've got a name. And then, because it's occurred to him as he looks around that there's a lot of mice here, and so he can't just go, I'm pure about a mouse, because that's not going to go anywhere. So now he's like, I see how this is going to work. I'm going to wait until everyone else is seated, and then I'll have a name, and then I can be like, I'm really sorry to tell you the news about
Nameplate.
They won't be here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he's going to wait. He's going to stay in the back and sort of wait until everyone else has taken their seats. So we can sort of narrow it down.
So what you see, and Nutella, this is very standard protocol. Every other guest that is currently in here, and it is mostly mice, but there are a couple other. There are some bat folk. There is one shell kept, like a snail, who immediately starts slithering their way out the back barn doors, just slowly, kind of sideways, like turning, going. But everyone either starts making their way, just like this, either starts making their way to the bar or starts heading out into the back. And the doors open. There is light sources kind of glowing inward as well. It's a little harder to see because this is a very well lit inn, but there is some kind of light emanating from the back that is not just the balloons. So, what does our party wish to do?
Now you said there's food and like snacks and hors d'oeuvres all laid out, right?
Yeah.
So like when Akko walks in, like he's still like trying to find somebody in charge, but like when he walks up, he stops and he puts his staff down a second and he looks over and he sees all the food, and he is just amazed because up on the cliffs it's like, rations and here's your water and bread. And he just for a second looks over and he's like, no, I've got to go, got to find somebody about this situation. I've got to. So he wants to go up to the bar.
Okay, perfect. And so he goes to the bar, and the mouse that is tending bar is relatively is middle size for a mouse, little short, but squat, has got this kind of brown, like this blacky gray with hints of brown fur. He's wearing a vest, and he's got these glasses, these round glasses, and he's slinging drinks like he's Tom Cruise when that meant something. And he sees you. I know, Tom. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Please keep your magic science powers away.
See, we just lost a viewer.
We're
I
making
know.
that Tom Cruise. You're not welcome here.
But he's passing drinks, and then he stops and he sees you, and he's like, oh, well, yeah, well, 1 second, and he kind of shoos a couple mice regulars away. He's like, make room, make room. It's not every gloaming that we got 2 lizard folk down from the Eye Cliffs. Here, please take a seat. What will you have? Something warm, something cold, something sweet, or something sour?
Something warm for sure. Who's in charge of security?
Security?
I walked right in. There was nobody at the door. It worries me. I feel like my accent's all over the place.
You know what? That's fine.
Perfect.
Vern's
That
gonna
looks
have like
great.
a million.
Looks
Different, yeah, it's perfect. We ain't Critical Role, man. We're like, oh, Douglas, I'm sorry, buddy. So
Douglas likes Critical Role.
Yeah, you know
Douglas is
what?
like, do better with your accent.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
The harshest critic.
Yeah,
Douglas.
well, you know, he says, in reply to that, he just kind of laughs and he's like, you know what? The other one said something similar to this too, and it's actually the point is to welcome people in. It's kind of how we make our money. So we don't really have many gods out here. This is a relatively safe place of the valley. I know I've heard from the High Cliffs that it's a little bit of danger, a little bit of feasting, a little bit more famine than feast up there. But no, this is as safe can be. I don't mean any offense. I've never been much past the warmest and safest parts of the valley, but no, you don't have to worry about security here. And he even looks and he says, I think you can hold your own though. By the look of you, you'd seem a little stronger than the other one who's been here.
I don't. Who else came? I was unaware.
Oh,
Was it
well,
this year?
Yeah. I mean, it was a little. Well, he's working for us. He just came down a little while ago. His name's Shrek, I think his name is. He's just down. He's working. Well, he just said he needed a place to be in. He needed something to. Oh, buddy, I'm sorry. He needed something to do, so we just put him to work down in the kitchen. So he's down there. I don't want to assume that you know him, but he seems nice enough.
And you said his name was Shrek.
Yeah. That's what he said. His name. I don't know. I think that's his name. What's your name? I'm sorry. I'm Ashy.
Ashy, my name is Aka.
Aka.
Pleasure.
It's a pleasure. And he said, "Oh, something warm." You said something warm, and so he goes back to one of the large vats, and he's looking over both of them. And he all of a sudden he picks one, and he gets you a small wood cup. And in that wood cup, you see like a golden liquid that smells kind of like cinnamon. And he passes it to you. He says, "Yeah, try this. I bet you haven't had this on the High Cliffs."
And he looks down and wonders why all of a sudden Ashy is from Australia. And
because we're not Critical Role, man. We're just not. We're not Critical Role.
he looks down. He's still like he's got his staff beside him, and he leans in and he holds it up and he takes a big sniff of it. Like by sniff, I mean he sticks his tongue out and
Right.
does the thing.
Yeah.
And he takes a sip and you can see something change, like immediately. And he kind of relaxes a little bit and he goes, "This might be the most amazing thing that I have ever tasted in my entire life. What do you call this, and can I have another one?"
Oh, of course you can have another one. Give me a second. And he just like gets you another. he gets you another cup. It's like a warm cider. You think it's the closest thing that you've had is a really bitter ale, and there's a hint of that, but it's warm and it's sweet, and there's like some kind of fruit. You've heard of fruit before. This is, you think that that's what it might be.
I think we would probably
That's,
get like dried fruit up there. Like you
yeah,
get the stuff that
Yeah,
was
they're
rationed
not
and dried,
edible.
and yeah,
totally. Yeah, so this is like, yeah, it's like, this is much sweeter and richer than anything that you've had on the wall, but there's a spice to it as well. It is it is just, it warms you from top to tail as soon as you drink the whole thing.
and he'll get the second one. He'll go, actually, thank you very much. And
It's my pleasure. It's, we don't, it's something that we make here. It's down. So what can we've always sent invitations up to the wall, up to the high cliffs. We've never actually had anyone come down before, let alone two of you. This is a big year for us. What brings you down here? Are you looking for work too? I think it's a bit late for that.
no, I was sent as a liege or a sin instead of one of the high captains. I was unaware that anybody else had orders to come. This is confusing to me, to say the least.
Oh, well, we don't. I don't mean to cause any trouble, any offense. When we asked Strack, he was a little light on the details. I didn't know if that was just the way of things. He just said he needed something to do, and something, he said something to do underground if preferable. And since our kitchen's underground, that seemed to be the place for him. So if you are finally, if the high shamans of your order and of your people have finally accepted an invitation, it's our great pleasure. Please have as many drinks as you want, and I really encourage you to check out our games. They're really the thing. We've got some fun ones this year, I think.
What are games like? Are they like practicing or marching? Maintaining
Dueler-
the bunks.
Dueler, having spent some time in the army, and probably has met one or two lizard folk, he kind of like walks up to the bar and hears that part of the conversation, and kind of comes around to the side of you and says, "Well, old chap, they're like drills, but less rules."
What do you less rules? Is that okay?
Well, I suppose, yeah.
Ashley is like looking at Dueler like he is a translator now between what seemed like very normal mousefolk things into what's clearly not normal lizard like proud scale things.
Yeah.
And he says, "Well, I'm going to leave you two to it. You just tap at the bar and we'll get you another one. I'll get one for your friend too. Ashy, it's a pleasure." And he goes and he gets Dueler. He brings back 3 mugs. One big mug that is well enough for a mouse, and then 2 for his new lizard friend. And then you hear like a couple mice, kind of like just be like, "Oi!" And he's like, I know, hold up. And then he just kind of like runs down to the back and he starts bickering with some old friends. Yeah.
Dueler, if this mug gets placed right in front of him, Dueler would smile and like nod appreciatively. He might even kind of like twist his whiskers in thanks. But as soon as Ashley is left, he very politely just shifts it over to the side and kind of looks at it just for a second, and then shakes his head, and then turns back to the proud scale and says, "Right, chap, all the way from the wall."
Yes, the only one.
It's on my list.
Honestly, if you would like to come up anytime, we can always use more help. There's always things to be done.
And And Dueler says, "What about soul play?"
I myself am not. He's holding his wizard's or sorceress staff, and he's like, me, not so much. There are those, however, that do defend with swords. And he looks
And
over at the is the Beetleborn still there with him?
No, I saw my opportunity to get away from Dooley.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was what I was going to ask him. But did you immediately like just?
No, in this scenario, the sorcerer is now the tank. You have,
The social tank.
you have taken
Social
over
tank.
Dooley, and Scania is. I mean, he sticks out because his head's huge. So I mean, you can still see like the horn, like above all the
Just-
mice. He's trying to like be as discreet as he possibly can be in a setting, and he's doing it all.
So what you would notice as Scanius is that like as you are trying to put yourself in crowds, those crowds are continuing to move outside. So you're finding fewer and fewer crowds to kind of hide behind.
Well, that's
right?
fine because I want the crowd to go outside because I got to figure out whose invitation I have.
Yeah, totally.
So-
So if you wanna follow them, you
Yeah,
definitely
yeah, that's
can.
fine.
And in a minute,
Because
awesome.
Dueler's in here, I will be out there.
You can hear from the bar, just like as you're leaving, you can
Yeah.
hear Dueler's voice kind of trailing along, and it says, "And then you would not believe, disarmed 17 Beetleborn. Let me tell you all about." And then you're.
Mac has got a new best friend.
Yay.
What's happened here? So, yep.
Nice. Aeonix, you come in and there's a mouse, like the mice, a flurry of mice haven't, like it's clear that most of the stuff is already outside, but there are still some things that are kind of coming in and out. And a small mouse recognizes you. It's older, but it's short in its nature. And it looks at you and it just kind of like very quickly curtsies. It just it stops and it says, "Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't know that our sympathies," and bows and then kind of and goes back and then one of the younger mice is like, "Who is that?" And it just smacks it, being like, "You don't just shh, don't even," and just kind of goes away. Vern comes back out and is like seeing these two kind of like just improper and is about to say something, and you see her like grabbing for like a very small wood spoon and is just like looking at them for a minute, but then sees you and quickly puts the spoon away and says, "Oh, oh, oh, my good child, come here." And she comes up and she says, "It's been so long. How are you?" And Aeonix, she just kind of looks at you and she's like, "You've grown. You've got you're I should have known. They always grow. Yeah, they always grow, but you've grown." And she says, "Oh, and oh, I see." And she points to your like, where does he hold his gun exactly? Or guns, I should say.
Yes, there's two of them. They're in little like shoulder holsters, like
Ooh, nice.
they're hidden under his vest, but you can kind of see them.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
they're
and
quickly reachable.
totally. Okay, so she goes to hug you, and do you accept the hug, or is this like a weird thing?
It's not the most comfortable, but he knows his presence. Pat, pat, move on
Okay.
type thing.
Totally. So she hugs you, and she can get that vibe. She's like, "Oh, well, it's clear that your parents would have been very proud. You've turned into a good lad and I see that you've taken up I see you've taken up some of the things that your da used to do." And she kind of motions to where your where the guns clearly are. You think that she might have accidentally brushed up against them. And she says, "As always, our house is a house to your family. Yeah, I know that the river is a little far away from here, so if you need a room at the end of the night, just let an old mouse know, and we've got many that'll that'll fit someone of your size. I know we've got some small ones that you're probably put in as a bab, but there's a bigger one now that we could have for you. Now, if you'll excuse me, please. I've got a couple things to do, but if you need anything, just ask, okay?
Of course.
Thank you. And she kind of like leans in and she says, it's good to see you again. And then goes back away. Nutella, what are you doing at this point in time?
So as soon as the speech was over, she goes right for the food.
Amazing.
And she just starts to like pick up like plate, and she's just like taking a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And she does notice like at one point there's like a lizard folk, and that's like not normal. Sorry, crowd scale. And it's not like a normal thing to see. And he like looks at the food, and she's like, "Oh, someone else who likes food." But then he leaves and doesn't take any food, and she's like, "Oh, well, I guess I don't know." So then she just like takes a bunch of food and she's carrying it, and then she thinks about getting a drink, but she doesn't really care. So then she just goes outside to go and try to find her place at the table so she can put her food down. But then she knows that the key to these gatherings is to get the good food before it's all gone. So she puts her plate down, and then she goes back and she gets more food.
Yeah.
And then she brings it back to the table, and then she can eat, and then she's good. Because she wants to eat a little bit now, like eat the really good stuff now, and then start playing some games.
And as is custom, right? So I'm going to tell you some things that you would already know. The food on the inside is, it's meant like little finger things, right? Like little bits of cheeses, skewers.
She doesn't get cheeses very often. Like like cheeses are like I think for Nutella, cheeses are like a gloaming thing. Like a pre-winter, put some of that extra like fat on so that you stay warm. So she's got like a plate of just like cheeses from across the valley, and she couldn't be happier.
Totally. So you know exactly where the cheeses are because the cheeses got to stay inside. And as you go out, and Ascanius, let's say that you've also made your way out here, so you will be seeing this too.
Sure.
You see that it opens up into like a very wide field. That this used to be a tall grass field, but the grass has been cut and stamped down. So around it, there isn't so much of a fence as it is just like the natural growth of the grass kind of encapsulates this large rectangle field that they use for this event. You can tell it's outliers because there are small kind of torches that are along it far enough away that the grass isn't a problem, but it kind of sets the boundary. And at the far end are the two other balloons that are kind of hiding, that are up high, kind of blowing in the night wind, as with the full light of the moon kind of hanging there. The hill, there's a small hill in the field itself, and at the center of the hill there is a big circular table, which is like basically two half circles that kind of go around. That's actually like a buffet. And so what you would know, Nutella, is that like the main dishes, the things that aren't served to you directly, but the things that like are the more heartier meals, and the meals of the guests are also placed at those dishes too, at that space. And it's set up in a way that there's like, it's a circle, but there's a cut in it so people can both use the inside and the outside to eat.
Maximum food access is
Exactly.
really what this festival is about for Nutella. So she samples like her favorite cheese so far is a like slightly crumbly aged like sharp cheese that's sort of like an extra sharp cheddar. And she's like keeping an eye out for more of that.
Amazing. What you also notice is that kind of on a little further down in the, like right from when you exit, further down, you see tables kind of lining the sides, of different sizes and circular, oval, small, long tables, basically whatever they could find. And to your left immediately, you see that there are certain games set up, and that kind of surround the large pumpkin. There's this massive Iscanius. This is not anything you've ever seen. There's this massive pumpkin, almost as tall as the inn itself, and the top is open and steaming. And there is mice that every so often use a very small ladder that go up and scoop a bucket out of it and bring it down and pour it into pots. So it's like they were cooking soup out of this thing. And along that bucket or along that pumpkin, you see certain games set up. You see, let me just get my notes. The one that's closest to you is you see a very large wood bucket that Nutella actually goes up pretty much halfway up you in size, and you know it as the traditional bobbing for seeds. There are little kids that have fully dunked themselves in, and other ones are trying to like pull themselves out with like something in their mouth. And you see some are soaked and some are just like jumping in, holy and parent mice trying to grab them out before some bad happens. You see that beside it, there is kind of like lined up right against the pumpkin. You see this very tall glass jar that's almost a story high. And there's a small ladder that goes up the jar. The jar is filled with some kind of water. And there's an old mouse that you know is Gramps. And Gramps is sitting at the top of the jar on this little chair with a mechanism that's bucket, and he's just drinking right out of a big jug. And there are small children mice just sitting and lining up, and there's like these wicker balls in a pile that he's just kind of sitting waiting. And these like his grand mice are just kind of watching, and they're eating. There's like these small bags that they're all eating from, like frantically, that they're kind of huddled around. That you think they've just been given a bunch of candy, and they're just like eating it like crazy. On the other side of the pumpkin, a little further against the wall, you see it's weird. You see like, it almost looks like a table or a teeter-totter with a basket on one end. And it looks like there are two small mice who are dragging some heavy grain sacks towards it it's hard to tell, but they're shaped oddly. You'd need to get a little closer. And along it, there is like a little farther out, there is like this, there's a fire that they've set up. Like there's like kind of like this stone cask that they've set up, and in it is a real fire that they have kind of set up. That there's some kind of game involved in that. That one's new. You think that one's new. Make a perception roll for me, actually. Both of you, Iscanius and Haley and Nutella.
Okay.
Who's
Yeah,
Haley?
let's get some rules into this.
Yeah,
Who's
Haley?
Haley?
Who's Haley? Also, I
Who's
think
Haley?
Nutella is probably the first game that she will do is bobbing for seeds, because
All right.
it's food related. And I rolled a 15 plus. Sorry, what kind of roll was this again?
Perception. Perception is perfect.
Perception. 17.
Amazing. Iscanius, what did you get?
13.
Perfect. Okay, so you would both notice on like most of the activity seems to be on that side of things, but turning, another new thing that you notice, turning to the right, you notice that there are on the other side of the back of this inn is the stump of the inn. It's right at the end, and the stump, Haley, you know, acts as a giant set of chimneys for the kitchen. So it is just as high as the inn itself, but smoke and steam kind of arise from different tubes that come out of it. But lined up along it, there are bat folk actually hanging off of the chimney, which is odd. And it's like they've set up a table along the bottom of the chimney, and you think you see a shell-kept kind of playing some kind of game with the bat folk that has never been there before. Like, you don't recognize any of them. And as you're watching, you see that the shell-kept kind of puts a bag down and then starts scooting back along the other wall, and you see a very long piece of corn that two other shell-kept are just kind of munching on, just happily on their own. Yeah. And that is basically it. You can see Ascanius, you can see that people are starting to take their places. You can see that there's
Good.
small chairs, and
Yeah,
you see that
excellent.
there are little table cards. Nutella, you know that your spot is generally very close to the games. Like you've always just been put there. It's where your family's always been. Aeonix, when you get there, when you choose to get out, it would take you a little bit of finding, but like you immediately start heading your way past the games to one of the long tables. And depending on, you can tell me what you want to do, but like when you get there, it's like you knew where your spot would be all along, right? It's like the same place that you and your family sat when you were kids, basically. And that is where we at. Our bar friends, are you still at the bar? Are you still at the bar?
I think that yeah, Dueler's gonna stay there and chat Aka's ear off like until he leaves, probably. At this
Aka,
point, if we
doomed.
imagine that like we've cut back to the two of them at the bar, Uz, you can, or Aka, you can tell me if this is on brand or not. But there's probably like a multitude of like ×3 of the mugs in front. Like he's just had to deal with Dueler so long.
Yeah,
He's
Yeah,
just
I
kept getting.
was gonna say, yeah,
He's
that may be a thing.
All right. How
And
about this?
Dueler's on a now a news story, something about that he once took on a rabid squirrel single-handedly.
Of course.
Yeah, and lived to tell the tale.
Amazing. Let us take now. We're going to play for about half an hour more, but we are going to take a quick bio break. So everyone, thank you. It's rare that there's a 3-break stream, but you know we do things a little differently here. Like we say, not critical role. So
Send tweet.
We need a banner.
Exactly.
Not
Thank you guys. We'll be back in like 5 minutes max. Get a drink, take a pee, and we can't wait to see you for our last half an hour.
Leave a pee.
See ya. we're back. Thank you very much. That's probably going to be our last break, I swear. But we really appreciate that you guys are kicking around. It really means a ton to us that you're here. So when last we were a second ago, the games had been introduced. The back had been introduced. We have 2 people stuck at the bar. They will be there for as long as they so desire. And Nutella, you were going to start bobbing for seats. Iskanius, I'm going to say that you are right around, like, those are the first tables that you are checking out. So while this is happening, you're pretty close by. And Aeonix, it is totally up to you. If, I mean, it is the one that has the water, but where do you want to be right now?
So Aeonix is gonna grab something sour from the bar and then head out to watch the speed bobbing because as a riverfolk, he knows how to do things in water, so he feels it's unfair to compete, but he likes laughing at this one.
Amazing. So as you pass by the bar, you see like a lizard with like 7 drink cups high, and there's a mouse who swears that he, like, the stories that this mouse is telling is astounding. All you hear is like an axe through a wall and 7 dresses. Like, that's all they do.
So they're long tails.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I love it. All right. So, Haley, who's Haley?
Who's Haley?
Nutella. So, you see like a younger mouse. You recognize her. She is always running this one. Her name is Cedar, and Cedar is wearing just a very simple kind of blue dress. She looks just like
Cedar
her.
is
Yeah.
running bobbing for seeds. Sorry.
I know, it's bad. She looks just like her mom, except younger, smaller, and you can tell that she's been playing herself because she is wet from top to bottom. Like,
Nice.
she's clearly either been like putting things back in, getting people out, or eating things herself. It could be any of those,
Or all of them.
all of them, yeah. And so she sees you and she kind of waves and she shoos some of the younger mice away. He's like, no, it's been your turn. Come on. So you know how this works. Basically, it's a free flow game. Like, it's not one at a time. There's just room that's made for you, and you just gotta dunk yourself down. And you know that there's both, like, there's candied seeds in there, and you've been told year after year that there are like different prizes that are tucked away in this one. And I don't know, you can tell me if you've won bigger prizes in the past or if you've always been like hunting for them.
No, I would say that Nutella comes up and she's like, I'm ready to defend my title. Like, this is my game.
Yeah. Okay.
And so last year, and she like tells all the kids, she's like, watch and learn, move out of the way. I need my space, but I'll show you how this is done. And then she knows the most important part of the seed bob is to look at all the seeds first and see what looks good and what looks also like you can get to it.
Right.
So what do I see?
Okay, you know what? So I would like to say, Aeonix, that like piques your ear, right? There's a mouse who says that they are the champion of this game. All right, so like that is a high order for a river tail, right? Now what you would see is that it's like the water is a little murkier than in previous years. Clearly, it's moving, like there's been a mouse just got pulled out of it. So it's a little difficult to tell, but you can see that in the bottom, there are definitely the small. It's deeper than you always give it credit for, right? But you can generally tell that around the edges, there are always like the wax wrapped candied seeds. There are different prizes every year, and they always put them in different places. You've tried in the middle. They've been there before. You've tried on the far side. Sometimes they're tricky. Sometimes they get moved. You don't see anyone gloating about the big prize yet, so you think it's still there, right?
So I remember,
but they never.
I remember last year It wasn't like the most exciting looking thing. It was like, it wasn't shiny, but
No.
it was like in a hard to reach place. So that's what I'm looking for, and I would like to try to get.
Okay, so I am interested. I am open for you to tell me what kind of skill you're going to use to either seek out and/or grab this thing. Because you
So
can do a search. You can do if you're looking to do a perception roll to see what you can find before you do the big dunk. That's fine. If you want to go blind in and do another kind of roll that way, that's fine too. Tell me what Nutella's bringing to the table.
yeah, so Nutella, she's definitely she knows she's got to scope it out first. So she's
Okay.
either a perception or an insight into what looks good, one of those before she dives in.
I'll take either. I will take perception or insight.
I'll go with insight because
Okay.
I've got some good.
Because it's on brand.
Because
It's
it's
on
on brand for insight.
Always be
I'll
branding.
always be
Ooze,
branding.
you can stay, man. This is great. You got it. You got
And
it,
I
man.
rolled pretty well. I rolled a 17 on the dice,
Okay.
and I have a +4.
Okay,
Ooh.
so it might be that the water's settled. It might be that a cloud moved and the full moon is finally really bright, but it's clearer now.
The light
And
shines for me.
The light shines for you. It's cleric, right? And you can see piles of that kind of dull, waxy seed, delicious. And there's so many of them that you know that it just takes the right dive to get a mouthful of them, right? Which is lovely. You also see a couple duller objects. They seem like sometimes they're boxes, sometimes they're containers. This year it seems like it's bags. And so you think you see a couple bags, one in the middle, one to the right. It would be a bit of a lean, right? And then one just a touch closer to the left of you.
Got it. So I'm going to go for the bag that looks the easiest, so probably the one closest to me.
For sure. You know that...
Oops, sorry.
No, go for it.
But before she makes an attempt for it, she is going to call upon the light from the full moon.
I love
and
this.
she's going to cast guidance on herself.
I never want this game to
Yes.
stop. This is
That's amazing.
Tell me how that looks. Tell me how casting
Guidance looks. So she looks up at the moon, and she has some autumn leaves that she pulls out of her pocket, and she throws dramatically in the air, and says "May the light of the autumn solstice shine upon me," and then she dives into the pond or the pool.
Amazing. So the leaves, before the leaves even hit ground, you hear their shimmer and you just dunk in. So now you can give me, there are a few different ways that you can do this. You can continue along your insight check to try and grab them. You can ABB. You can do some kind of acrobatics, investigation, a survival check if that is your fancy. Tell me, because looking for them is one thing, but grabbing them while underwater, I feel is a whole other skill.
I think survival might be her thing. She's very tuned into the foraging for the winter and making it through the seasons. So I think she'll go with the survival. So let's see. All right, okay, 13 plus 4 is a number, 17, and then guidance. I get a +2.
So that is
19.
19.
19?
All right,
yeah.
So you're now eyes open or eyes closed in the water for a
No,
mouse.
eyes closed because she wants to look cool.
Yep. So your mouth
showing off.
Yeah, she's showing off. Well, she told all the kids that she would show them how it's done.
Aeonix, you watch this. You see this mouse throw leaves in the air spin. Her eyes are already closed before she's done spinning, mouth open, and then just dunk. And it's a good bit of time. A beat
That's
later,
a new one.
she comes back out. You feel as soon as you feel the fabric of the bag, Haley, you know you got it, and you pull up, and you have got one of the prize bags. And it is
as I come up, I fling it like out of my mouth and I catch it.
amazing. It is, and all the kids are like, whoa! And then there's a small girl mouse that you recognize, and being like, oh, Nutella, I knew you would do it, and being like, and you just this one little girl is just enamored.
I give her a leaf, a little autumn leaf.
Oh my goodness, she takes it, and her eyes get anime big, and and they're just shaky with excitement, and she's like, thank you, and she just kind of shows her friends and just runs away to full of joy. The do you look at the bag is small, it's smaller than you gave it credit for, and it's light, but there's definitely something in it that that's clearly it's definitely a prize. So
she's gonna act like she doesn't really care, but she's really gonna take it back to her seat at the table right away.
For sure. So you just kind of walk away to take a look at to what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. So hidden, make a here, Aeonix, make a Aeonix and Iskanius, are you watching this? Are you
No.
you might be a man who's a bug who's on a mission. This might
Well,
all be nonsense to you.
I'm a serious bug.
Yeah, of course.
And beyond that, that little barrel is not going to accommodate my massive head. So
No.
even if I was interested in playing, there's mechanical problems.
You just crush it.
I would destroy it. And
That's one way to win.
That's true. You could get all the prizes at once.
He's,
Nutella's never thought of that.
Whatever this is seems to mean something to these mice, and he's not here to make waves. He's to inform them of the tragic death of someone who was supposed to be here. Obviously that's better. And no, he's off on his own. He keeps kind of surreptitiously walking up to tables, and he's trying to be really chill about all this, but he's not good at this.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll sort of, he'll walk up and kind of just eye the tables, and if people catch his eye, he'll be like, I'm just seeing who's here.
Just
And
Good
they'll be
seeing
looking at him
you here.
yeah, it's good to be gloaming. But
Always
the
be
tables are starting
gloaming.
to fill up, but there's still empty seats at every table, so this just isn't going as fast as he wants it to.
Yeah.
Look, he's here to deliver a message, and then he needs to get going. And so he's getting frustrated that these people are having too much fun, and they're not letting him get on with this incredibly important message that would ruin their fun. And it's just it's annoying, frankly. It's annoying.
I love him. All right. So he will eventually find there's a table where everyone's seated there, but they're all paying attention to this frog. There's this croaky frog, very warmly dressed as well. Long red coat, blue trousers, very thick, right? And he's got a small companion frog beside him, and much smaller. I don't know if you care about such thing or not, but they all seem to be paying attention to this creature who seems to almost there's one empty chair that's clearly not his, and he's using it as a stand. He's got 1 foot up on it, and it's almost 1 foot up, and he's giving a
He's
presentation.
Captain Morganing it.
Like
Yeah,
Captain
he's
Morgan?
Captain.
Yeah.
Captain?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is, and
Got
he's
his
like,
mug?
he's pointing to the balloons. You can't really, from where you are, you can't really hear what he's saying, but he's clearly like big hand gestures. The little frog behind him is just like eagerly nodding its head. It's got a very tall cap kind of that dangles down behind it. That seems to be in awe of what this larger frog
Sure.
is saying. But you think that he's standing on your chair. Aeonix, before we move to that, why don't you make a perception roll to see if you notice Nutella sneakily trying to watch? You think she won, man, but let's see if you see her opening up her prize or not. And Haley, if you want, you can make a sleight of hand check to see, or Nutella, you can make a sleight of hand check to see if you're sneaky enough that nobody notices.
All right, let's see.
I'm sure it will be.
Oh, I don't know. It's not good. I got a 3 plus 2, which is 5.
I did better than that. I got an 8.
There you go.
So you're only sort of paying attention, but she's like, you know how kids try and hide something, but they're too excited about it, so it's not really hiding it. So you're trying to be coy, but like this is the smallest prize that you've ever gotten, right?
Ooh.
Like most times it's like sometimes there's money, sometimes there's gifts, and you open it up and there's a ring in it. There is a
Well, that means you're married
small-
now.
Pardon?
That means you're married now. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
I don't think Nutella wants to be married.
No,
She's like she's like an old teenager, maybe like 20.
amazing. You're not married, but you do have. It is it's a simple ring, but it's clearly important. It's clearly meant to be worn, and you can put now in your character sheet on D&D Beyond, not our sponsor, but maybe
D&D
one day.
Beyond.
It's so easy.
It is. It's Haley, you've experienced this. It's really easy, isn't it?
It's so easy. I've got
It's
it
so
open
weird.
right now.
Yeah.
This is
And
what
I
it
have
feels like.
clicked
Now I
on
understand.
equipment, and I'm going to say add items, and I'm waiting for you to tell me what I'm adding.
We are
A ring of
such a
protection.
great.
A ring of protection. That's
You
awesome.
found her +1 ring of protection.
I
Nice.
have added it to my character sheet.
So convenient.
So convenient.
Yeah.
And so
Ah.
you notice Aeonix, you notice her find, and the ring shines like it's shiny. So she takes it out of this very wet brown bag, and it just glimmers, right? So you notice it immediately. Yeah. Iscanius, what do? You think you see that everyone is sitting at a table. I'm going to say that as you were going, you saw this croaky end a speech at another table and has since taken up the space that you think is the one that you're looking for.
Well, all I see is a big frog version of Dueler. And
I'm just
I
going
had to
say
put up with him for
fire
so
emoji.
long.
and so I'm thinking,
Oh.
like, yeah, like Dueler and I spent like years dealing with Dueler.
Yeah, we served for a long time
Yeah.
together.
Too long. And so what I'm looking at is I'm thinking, okay, well he came from another table. So if I'm patient, he'll go to a different table. And then I can finally find out whether or not I'm going to be disappointing these people.
For sure. So you stand far enough away that, well, one second. Are you like, how far are you away from this?
I don't think it matters because I'm huge. So
Yeah.
no matter how far away I am, and am I the only Beetleborn here?
You know what? Make a perception roll for me. Now
Okay.
that you're further down into the table. Now that you're further in.
Well, here's the thing: this frog is so distracting.
Okay.
Uh,
Uh-oh.
You know, I mean,
Oh,
I'm not
those-
gonna say it was a 7, but let's imagine it's like in the realm of 7.
Yeah, it's
Something
not quite a
like
6, and it's not quite an 8, and it's
Yeah.
somewhere.
Right? It
Sure.
was a 7.
It's
Right
down the
between
middle.
6 and 8. I like that.
It's-
It's a much
Yeah.
more positive way of announcing
Yep.
your
Yeah.
battle.
Yes.
it's a very full number, because it 8.
It is. It is. Yeah. So
Mhm.
yeah.
7,
Nice.
8, 9.
Oh
No.
my god, you get to stay. This is incredible.
That's
oh
genius.
my god, I love it.
I feel so bad.
No, so you know what? It's like you've been focused on your task. There's a lot of people here. It's
Right.
pretty clear when there is another Beetleborn, but you haven't been
Yeah.
expecting to see one.
Right.
Though at this point, nothing would surprise you about this space. You stand and like the small frog points to you. Like this, its master is giving this grand speech about the balloons and how this frog has gifted the gloaming with these wonderful creations, none of which had ever been seen, unparalleled in a festivity of such manner. And the small frog keeps pointing at you and is like, without saying, like trying to invite you in on what it thinks is.
And I just like
a,
nod with one of my hands. I'm like, no, really, I'm over here. It's
it doesn't know
For
what
the
to do about
podcast,
this.
there's a lot of hand gesturing going on.
there's a lot of gesturing. There's a lot of
There's-
very not subtle. Like, no, really,
Yes and
I'm good.
Yeah, there's a lot of come on over, and then maybe not.
Air
It's
traffic
fine.
control is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what so he keeps talking about the balloons, and then this small frog grabs at the coattail of the big frog, and then the big frog is like is in the middle of a story and looks down and he's like, Poco, no. And then the frog keeps pulling and he's like, no, you see. Then he sees, and then Poco points to you. He says, oh. And then this one frog kind of turns to you and says, oh, a warrior, a great warrior. And then he says, you would know, you might know, my friend, come here. I am Zolasi, and I have brought a gift. And of course, there is the gifts of the light of the balloons, but I was about to tell these mice of a treat that they have never tasted before. But you, my
Nutella
friend,
hears this
you
and she
fought.
runs over.
Incredible. And he says, you have fought beyond the borders of the high wall, yes.
Yes. Though, if you're looking for a real warrior.
Can I interject at this moment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
now if you're looking for a real
And-
warrior, I know of one here.
At this exact moment, Jeweler just like is right behind Ascanius. and he just like comes around from the side of Ascanius, and he's got his hand like on the shell,
Yeah.
and he's actually under the cape. Like he comes out from under the cape, and he
Oh,
says, "Oh chap, what an introduction!" And he holds out his hand. Dula.
He's like,
I like to think that Akka is at the bar, and 1 minute Jeweler's there.
Yeah.
And he goes to take another huge drink of this, and he puts it down, and Jeweler's gone.
Yeah, I had a whole thing planned out too.
So sorry.
Oh, it's fine. It's good.
oh no.
It's I like that too because he was in there because I imagine at this point he's doing the whole like leaning on the staff thing,
Yeah.
and it's just like looking around, and he knows he's got stuff he needs to be doing, and it just won't stop. It just won't.
It just goes on, doesn't it? It's incredible.
So,
So no, this is perfect. This is perfect because now Jeweler's here, and so Ascanius is like, this is the warrior I was talking about.
two great warriors. Oh, I am.
It's him.
Two.
And,
No,
like,
my
he
friend.
puts his hand around Jeweler and like brings Jeweler in front of him. He's like, no, believe me.
As
Jeweler he's a warrior unlike any you've probably ever met.
at that
Happy
introduction,
to tell you about it.
Jeweler pulls out his long sword, which is quite small because he's a small mouse. And he pulls it out and he twirls it around and on his finger, gets his finger in part of the like cross guard and whips it around in a circle and then catches it and puts it all away in like 3 seconds. And he stands there and he says, It is I, jeweler.
And Poco, the small frog, claps wildly and takes its hands and waves them and uses prestidigitation to go ba 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 and like little fireworks go.
Jeweler loves this. He takes his hand and he twirls his whiskers and until he gets right to the end, and he lets go, and it just boing.
Amazing.
And he just stands there.
So Lassie,
Scanius is going to attempt to make a stealth check.
The gigantic beetle.
Yes.
Yes.
He's huge. He's armored. You got a 15.
Okay.
So
you know what?
He's just gonna back off into the crowd, subtly with all these mice that only come to like his chin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap up in a second because we've hit our time. But the last thing so Zolasi is like, what a great warrior! You must have fought beyond the wall. So you must, my friend. And he gets really low, but his voice is still loud enough that absolutely everyone can hear him. And he says, "You must have heard of the monster known as the chicken." And that's where we're going to end our stream.
Yeah, good.
Oh, God.
Excellent. Fantastic.
That's good.
My friends, thank you so much for coming. This has been so freaking fun.
My jaw hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. It hurts. I've been smiling too much.
Oh my goodness. I haven't been in the Twitch chat, so I know I'm going to be watching the VOD just to see everything and see everyone who's been on it. So thank you everyone who's there. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for taking time to watch this on the recording. And this will be a podcast, so anyone who is only getting here at the end, if you want to listen on your way to work, which I know a lot of us do, we're going to be hopefully getting that to you guys soon. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you again to all of the players who are here. Stay kind.
Thank you, Leap.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, thank you.
So
Thank you, Leap.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll be back in a month around. We're going to figure out another time that we can all get to the table again. So more of the Gloaming will be here soon. Not soon enough, but soon. Stay kind, stay curious, stay careful out there. And remember, heroes come in all sizes. Thanks for coming to the Valley. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.